In the last one, we talked about the picture element and how we can use it to change out the picture based on the resolution problem and the art direction problem. So today we're going to take a look at tables, how to create tables in HTML. Now, first of all, a table is a structured set of data made up of rows and columns. Now, why is it useful? It's very easy to grasp the content of a table at a glance. That's number one. Then a good structure allows you to quickly find content, understand the associations between the content in the same row or column, and it also lets you see the big picture clearly, because a table shows a lot of information categorically at a time in one place. So let's see how we can create a table in HTML. So there are a couple of obvious elements that we'll be required to use. One is the table tag. So this is used to encapsulate all the elements. So everything you create for the table goes in between these table tags. Okay, then we have table data. So every cell in a table is called, has a TD tag. Okay, so that's table data. Then we can group a couple of cells inside a table row, and these things will get a little bit clearer once we start working in Visual Studio Code. And we can also assign certain cells to look like headers. They basically make the table cell bold. Okay, so let's get into it. Let's have a look at table, TD, TR, and TH. Pretty simple. Okay, first of all, let's clear this entire thing that we used in the last lesson. We don't need it. And let's get into making our first table. So I just refresh this. Sorry, I just save this to refresh. So now we have a blank page. Let's get back in and create our table. So first of all, we use the table tag, right? So that's table. And if I save this right now, you don't see anything because there's nothing inside the table. So let's add an element. So we can add an element inside the TD tag, which was the table data. So we write TD, and we can say item 1. And if we save this, you see item 1 represented over there. So let's also do table data 2 and 3. Let's add 2 more. Now each of these cells, they represent a column. So that's what TD does automatically, creates a column. So let's add this. So TD, and we can write item 2. Do that again, TD, item 3. Okay, so we have item 1, item 2, item 3. So now these don't exactly show you how, they don't show you exactly the table. So I'm just going to set up some simple CSS to this so you can see, what the table actually looks like. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to set up a little CSS over here so you can see things clearly. So I'm going to set up a max width. Sorry, that's max width of 900 pixels, right? And we're going to set a margin of auto. It's with margin, what's wrong with me? So I can spell that for Christ's sake. Okay, and we'll have a TD and a TH. Oh, and first of all, the main table itself. So you don't need to worry about this. You will learn a lot more about CSS in the coming tutorials, but I'm just doing this so you can actually see the table. Okay, so we have a table layout. We have a table layout. We're just going to say fixed. We'll say the border has 1 pixel solid black, and we'll just say border collapse, and we'll say collapse, and we'll just set each of the table cells to have a width of 100 pixels. So TD, and we'll say TH, okay, and we'll say width is 100 pixels. So now you should be able to see that the table is here. You can see each table data has a width of 100 pixels, and they have a border of 1 pixel. They're solid, and it's black in color. Okay, now let's get back into the table. So we covered table and TD so far. Let's talk about creating a row. Okay, so let's add a row in here. So what we can do is we can add a row. That's a TR. Okay, and what we can do is we can move all this inside one row. So this means we're saying, what this means is you have a row, and inside that you have 3 columns, right? So this is 1 column, 2, 3, right? And this is row number 1. So that's how we create a row. If you save this right now, you don't see any difference because there is just 1 row. But if you want to create another one, all we can do is let's just copy paste this below, copy and paste it, and you should be able to see another row. So this is how we define another row. Now if this wasn't there, if you just kept adding another TD, you would just create more columns, as you can see. So if you create another row, you can see the first row has 4 columns, the second one has 3. So that's how we create rows. Now let's see if we can, okay, let's say this first row had headers on them. Okay, so these were the headings for each column. So how do we do that? So we can call this, we use the TH element. So we change TD to TH, right? We do that for all of these. In fact, there's a better way. So Visual Studio Code can let you select similar items and change them all together. So I'm just going to do that. So I'm going to change all these TDs to THs. So first of all, I'm not going to need that one. I'm just going to change all these TDs to THs. Control S, and there you go. Now you can see that the first row is a heading because we used the TH tag, right? So that's how we do a table. We use the table tag, then we define each cell by using the table data tag. We can define separate rows by encapsulating table data inside a table row, and then we can also make table headings for columns or rows by using the table header tag, which is what we did here, right? Now let's move on to a little bit more advanced elements. So we're going to start expanding our table, making it a little bit more complex. So there are a couple of elements we can use to do that. And the first one is call span. So this is used to merge 2 or more columns together. And we can use row span the same way to merge more than 2 rows. Call group is a container for column element. The call group and call element work together, and we'll get to that. Things will get clear. So once we start building out our table, you'll see how we can use call span, row span, call group, call. And we also can use Right, so before we get into trying to understand what call span and row span are, let's actually make sense of this table. So let's actually put some proper data in it so it looks realistic. So let's call this, we'll call this item 1. Actually, we'll call it John. All right. No, we'll give them names. So we'll give them headings. So we'll call this first one serial number, right? We'll call this second row, we'll call the second cell name, right? And we'll call this one sex, okay? So we'll call this first one, let's save that. And you can see it's changed to serial number, name, sex. So let's put some data in it in this column now. We'll call this one, let's say John. We'll call this, oh sorry. We'll call this will be number 1. Then it will be John. And then this will be male. Save that. Yeah, there we go. So we have a proper table now that actually makes sense. Let's add a couple more rows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate these. I'm going to duplicate this. So great. So now I have 2 more rows, but it has the same data. So I'm just going to change this. We'll call this number 2. The second one, call it Ashton. Okay, and she will be a female. Then we'll have a third row. You see, third row will be Jesse. Okay, and okay, fine, he's a male. Okay, so Jesse's a male. And we save that. So we have 4 rows. The first one is table heading, and then we have TDs all over. Okay, so we have a serial number, name, and sex.